Good evening, Baruchim Abayim Rabotai. Welcome to another edition of our Thursday night's class. Tonight's class is Hilula Nishmat, my brother, Yisrael Meir ben Sarah, Zechet Tzadik Kadosh Levacha, Zchuto Yagen Aleinu V'Kol Yisrael, Amen. Time goes by, it's been 3 years already. So in the spirit of Shabbat that we call Shabbat Nachamu, in the name of the Haftarah that we're going to read on Shabbat Haba Aleinu L'Torah, which by the way I'm going to be in Queens for Shabbat, for those who it makes a difference too. And in the spirit of his Yartzai, which is Sunday night, we'll try and combine the two and maybe come out with something semi-new. I want to give a disclaimer in advance that tonight's shiur is in credit of a rabbi that I've quoted from in the past a lot, who unfortunately until today I didn't have the merit to meet, even though he lives right here in Brooklyn. His name's Moshe Yosef Shinerman, who put out a beautiful set of Sfarim. Every few months another volume comes out called Oil Moshe, on Chumash, on different Moadim, on Inyanei Emunah, and on many other things. His son and I learned together in yeshiva. The father, well, the son as well, but the father's a humongous Talmid Chacham, a Gaon, who always has brilliant ideas, and every time the son brings me a new volume, I have Gan Eden for a little while. I get a little taste of paradise in this world to see what he has to write. So pretty much anything I'm going to say tonight somehow came from this volume of the Sefer that I got. I want to begin with a story that he quotes, an amazing story. There is a Gemara in Masechet Sotah, all the way at the end of Sotah, the Samachet Amud Aleph. The Gemara talks about Memtet Amud Aleph. There is no Samachet in Sotah. The Gemara talks about the days of Mashiach. We once gave a class based on that Gemara alone, all different signs of Mashiach. So in the Gemara, there's one. We're going to just take one little verse, one little quote from there. The Gemara says, "Be'ikvita de Mashiach," in the times of Mashiach. Now, we don't. Be'ikvita is b'nashon akev, is like in the heels, meaning in the final stage. But that can be a very long period of time. Rabbi Chonon Wasserman, for example, wrote a sefer that's called Ikvita de Mashiach. Over there, he writes at least 70 years. Other Sfarim write much more than that. So it doesn't mean, today, tomorrow. Don't look at it that way. It's dangerous to look at things that way. But in the era of Mashiach, whatever that'll mean. So the Gemara says a prediction, and it's a prediction that has a very negative context to it. Chutzpah yizgeh, people will be extremely arrogant. Ikvita de Mashiach, chutzpah yizgeh. This is what the Gemara says, a fact. This is what the Gemara says. So he brings down an amazing story. Two Gdolei Olam, Torah giants, Rabbi Akiva Eiger and Rabbi Yaakov Milisa. Rabbi Yaakov Milisa is known more as the Netivot HaMishpat. These were two Gaonei Olam, they were close friends as well. We're walking together, and what do two Talmidei Chachamim do when they walk together? So the Gemara teaches us that afilu sichatam shel Talmidei Chachamim tzricha limud. What does that mean? That if you're sitting and you right near you are sitting two Talmidei Chachamim and they're talking, but it seems like they're schmoozing, friends, they're talking, and they don't mind you listening in. Listen in; it's worth listening in. Why? Because just from there, what they call schmoozing, you have a lot to learn from. You can learn, even halachot, even different things, because every word of a Talmid Chacham is measured down to the science. Every single word is calculated. So, afilu sichatam, even what seems like a sichat chulin is not chol. So these two Talmidei Chachamim were walking, and they were having a sicha, but in this case, it was a friendly sicha. They were talking and learning. As they're walking and talking and learning, they see a group of boys that, let's just say, Jews that maybe forgot they were Jews temporarily. They weren't exactly up to good. And they were sitting over there on the sides of the streets. Yoshvei Kranot. Now, Bivadai back then, and honestly until today in certain circles, even if a person is very far away from Torah and mitzvot, but respect for Talmidei Chachamim deep down exists. I remember clearly from my younger years when Rav Shach, Zechet Tzadik Kadosh Levacha, was still alive, that even the non-religious or the less observant always took into consideration what he had to say. Even though to them, Avshach should have been just an old man. But still, there was a certain yirat kavod, a certain respect for Gdolei Ador, for Talmidei Chachamim. There was something there. We see it clearly in the Sephardic communities. We see it very clearly. We could have somebody who's a Mechalel Shabbat b'Faesia, but if a rabbi comes to his office, he stops his work and he takes him in and he gives him money and he takes care of him. It's very common practice, right? We see it all the time in all our industries that we're strong in. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying that as a big shvach, as a big limud zchut on Am Yisrael, that there's still a certain amount that's left of within them. Years ago, of course, it was much, much more, because the Gdolim were these giants that everybody, feared their holiness, and the people also were a little more clear-minded and sane, and the combination of the two made it that there was a certain yirat kavod that people had for Talmidei Chachamim. Back then, the accepted behavior was that when you saw a Talmid Chacham walking by, just like a pi halacha, it should be today also, it's always, but then it was done by everybody. So even if you and the Talmid Chacham had nothing in common because of where you were holding in life, but people would stand up. Talmid Chacham came by, you stood up. So Yagen and Tivot HaMishpat are walking, they're sitting and they're talking together, and they walk by this group of young boys that are up to no good sitting on the side of the street. And they see that the boys don't get up. And they don't stop what they're doing. They continue doing whatever they're doing as usual. So the Tivot HaMishpat turned to Rabbi Yagen and he sighed and he said, it must be that we're in already the time of Ikvat HaDemshicha. He said, because there's no respect left anymore. Look, chutzpah yizgeh. They have no respect anymore for us. There's nothing left. That's what they said. So Rabbi Yagen turns back to his friend in the Tivot HaMishpat and he says, my dear friend, you got it all wrong. He says, what do you mean? He says, you think that that's called chutzpah? That's not called chutzpah. They're in their own world. They don't affiliate with us. There's no. So why should they respect us? They have no connection. Because let me tell you what the Gemara means. Chutzpah yizgeh. What's going to end up being one day? This is what he told them. Back then, how far-fetched was this? Because there's going to be a generation. And it's going to be young boys. We'll call it the startup generation, the high-tech generation, that are going to be walking on the street. And they're going to see two old rabbis sitting on the park bench, resting. Now it's been Atzmanim, the Rosh Yeshivot, go out a little bit to rest. They have El coming up, they have to be ready, new energy. And they're going to want to sit down. And the bench is taken by two old men. And they're going to talk between each other and say, what a chutzpah, these old men can't get up for us? Because that's what the Gemara meant, chutzpah yizgeh. This is what Rabbi Yagen answered back to Tivot HaMishpat. Now, to some, this may sound far-fetched, right? What? Such a thing? That's not going to happen. Even on the buses, they have the front seat. It's for handicapped, for elders. Not that it's ever vacant for them, because normally there's some young kid with a poodle sitting there. But at least in theory, it's supposed to be like that. But there's a lot deeper. Rav Dessler explains, he doesn't say it about this story, Rav Dessler doesn't quote the story, but he explains the idea. What's the psychology behind it? Rav Dessler, Mechtav Meliyahu, in the second chelik, I think it's page 52, definitely in the previous print before the updated one now, writes an interesting criteria to this. He says, where does a person get to disrespect somebody that's older than him? Where does he get it from? You're 20. He's 80. He has 60 years life experience over you. Forget about what life you live, what life he lives. At the end of the day, he has more experience than you. He's been around longer. Just for that alone, he probably has something smart to say. So Rav Dessler Mechtav Meliyahu writes what, even when he wrote it, that wasn't so long ago, still is a little bit of a prophecy because the world was so far from this. He says there's going to be a generation of young kids that are going to come up with brilliant ideas. He doesn't write technological ideas, but I have a feeling that that's what he really meant to. And the older generation is going to lag behind drastically in all these brilliant ideas, these advanced ideas that these young kids came up with. Take somebody who's 70 and give him an iPhone X. Is he going to know what to do with it? He's going to give it back to you and say, give me a phone that the buttons are big and I can press them easily. That's what he's going to give to you. That's what he's going to do. And not wrongfully, rightfully so. That's what he's used to. That's what he likes. That's what he knows how to do. And that's what he's going to give you. He says, so this generation is going to think to themselves, we're the iPhone era. We know technology. We have apps. We're advanced. These old men, what do they know? They know the old-fashioned way of doing things and this and that. Some young boy recently asked me if I can help him get an account, something in the jewelry business. So I told him, yeah, I'll help you out gladly. I said, you're an honest boy and that. I said, give me a word that there's no cutting corners, no playing games. Not in tzedakah, not in taxes, God forbid. And as long as you're doing everything straight, I'll speak to the guy. He's a relative, I'll speak to him. I spoke to the gentleman, he was a little hesitant. He's just a new guy, young, in the industry today, we don't like dealing with people like that. I told him, this kid's good for it. He tells me, you vouch? I said, I vouch. Very rare that I'm willing to say that on somebody, on anything, definitely not in business. A couple of days later, I called the youngster to find out if it worked out and to make sure he's happy. It was an account that he begged me to help him get. And he tells me, no, I can't do business with that guy. I said, why can't you do business with him? He said, because I told him I'm going to put in an order in an email. And the guy said, what do you mean an order in an email? I work with a pen and paper. Tell me what you need. Let me write it down. He says, people that work like that, I don't relate to them. I don't connect with them. And this Rav Dessler dawned on me. I said, it's exactly what Rav Dessler wrote. He said, there'll be a generation of kids that won't relate to the elders because of where they think they're so much more advanced. They don't realize that their advancement took them back in time 1,000,000 years, but they think in their imagination. Could be that's the pshat in this story. That there'll be a generation that'll say, wait a second, we're smarter, we're more advanced, you're less advanced, so I have to respect you, you respect me, come, let me teach you. Look what I know. Look what I know how to do. That's chutzpah yizgeh. Why is that chutzpah yizgeh? It's in the goyim world, I don't know if there's a problem with that. Could be it's right. Maybe it's right. There might be a certain amount of truth to it. There's a very famous story, I would hope everybody knows it already, that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was with his son once on a plane, Zecher Tzadik L'Racha, L'Avdil Ben Chaim L'Chaim, his son is still alive, from here to Israel. And I think he was actually going to one of the knisiyot of the rabbis that they had in Israel back then. And on the flight, they were sitting, and there was a guy that was sitting near them. And he was also sitting with his son. Rabbi Yaakov was a very approachable person. I was his neighbor in Muncie for a few years. Very approachable. If you were scared to approach him because of who he was, the great Dolador, he would approach you. Unbelievable. And not only Goyim, and not only Jews, even Goyim. By his funeral, a Goya wanted to speak. They didn't let her speak because it wasn't appropriate. But at the end, they asked her, why do you want to speak? She said, I just want to say one story. Across the street from where Rabbi Yaakov lived in Muncie on Saddle River Road, there was like a monastery type place where different people were there. She was one of them. But she wasn't 100% and she had her issues. And she says, I'm here for a few years and every morning I sit outside in the front. And never did anybody say good morning to me or talk to me or whatever, except for one old man. This rabbi that lived across the street used to come across every single morning to say good morning to me and to ask me if I need anything and how I'm doing. Yaakov Kamenetsky, we don't understand what Yaakov Kamenetsky was at all. He knew the whole Torah Kula simultaneously in his brain in one shot. And for some random Goya who was in a monastery at all, in one of these places of Avodah Zarah. Still, it's a Tzelem Elokim. Another example, somebody who used to be his driver told me that when they would come to tolls, then there wasn't Easy Pass yet. It was either cash lane or your tokens. Rabbi Yaakov was always making go to the cash lane. He said, Rabbi, I have tokens. It's much quicker. You don't have to wait. The line goes quicker. You just throw it in. And he said, no, but if we go to the cash lane, then I could say good morning and thank you to the toll attendant. If we don't go to the cash lane, I lose out on that. I understand a little bit why we might not be so advanced with the automated generation. When you still walked into a store to buy food, you could tell somebody good morning, you could tell them thank you, you could wish them a good day. When it's click, 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 and somehow gets to your door, you lost it. You don't have it anymore. You lose the touch. That was a different way of thinking. It's a way of thinking that today a lot of people, I've said this in other places this week, and they looked at me like I fell off the moon. Like, what? What does that have to do with anything? That's the downside of Amazon. Today was a good day for the Jewish nation. Facebook dropped 20%. Ken Yirbu Bezrat Hashem. HaRav goes down to 0. It's the Yom Simcha. But that's what that did also. That any human interaction, any touch that there was between people no longer exists. No longer exists. God forbid, I didn't mean that comment for those Jews that do the right thing with their money that lost, that had fortunes wiped out today. I'm not trying to harp on that point. I'm trying to harp on the point that the virtual world, if it dies a little bit, wouldn't kill any of us. It would actually help a lot of us. But what does this have to do? HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to us this week, and the Navi comes, the Haftarah that we're going to read, and he says, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. We went through Tisha B'Av. It's very disappointing, honestly. I was hoping we wouldn't have a Tisha B'Av like that. We would have a Moed, but we didn't have it. We didn't merit again. And Kinot, Echa, fasting, sadness, Churban Habayit, everything. And then, immediately after this morning, we go to the opposite extreme. It's like going from a shiva to a wedding in a 5-minute transition. For 3 weeks straight, we read in the Haftarot that if you understood the words were honestly scary. The Navi throws the book at us. They're very harsh words there. I don't even want to translate them. Very, very harsh words there. And then suddenly HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes this week, and it's like the Navi, the whole story changes. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Dabu Alev Yerushalayim, Hashem talks to our heart. The Kiru Elea, we call out, everything. Don't worry about it. Wait a second, so which one is it? Last week you killed me on the Haftarah. This week everything's great. Which one is it? And how do these things get along? It seems like some extreme opposites. More than that, we go from Tisha B'Av, and immediately after the Tisha B'Av, less than a week later, tonight, we have a Yom Tov, Tu B'Av. A Yom Tov that the Gemara says, Lo Ayu Yamim Tovim B'Yisrael, is like Yom HaKippurim and Tu B'Av. It's a night like Kippur tonight. That's the power that it has. By the way, it's a big power in Tefillah. If anybody needs a Yeshua in anything, and who doesn't need today Yeshua in something, utilize Tu B'Av to daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's not only in Shidduchim. Shidduchim, that they have to market to raise money for Yad L'Achim. It's a beautiful thing. But it's in all areas in life. In all areas in life. It's a day that the gates of heaven are wide, wide open. So you go from a day where it seems like it's the end of the world, the greatest morning, and immediately right after that, there's a day that Lo Hayu Yamim Tovim, such a big Yom Tov. It seems like we're an extreme religion. We go from one extreme to the next, always. Yom Kippur, we're in synagogue all day crying, and at the end of the prayer we say, Lech echol b'simcha et lachvecha. Go eat happily. Like this, all our holidays have that element. On one side this, and on the other side that. It's an amazing thing. Once a Chatan told me, when I was teaching him, before he got married, he says, everything that you taught me, I agree with. There's one detail I don't agree with. I'm thinking, okay, let me hear. What? I said, first of all, I didn't teach you anything. I just quoted the Shulchan Aruch. But let me hear. Which issue do you have? He said, that, everything. Beautiful. Marriage skills. Beautiful, beautiful. He says, I thank you. You don't understand how much knowledge I gained. This guy wasn't so affiliated. But one thing to me is a little weird. He said, when you were teaching me how to say, some chatanim, they don't, most of us attended a lot of weddings, and this is like, even though we're not rabbis and we don't know how to do the ceremony, but at least we know how to follow along. This guy didn't even read Hebrew. So the basics of his chuppah that was going to be done in an Orthodox way, I wanted to explain him in advance so he understands what's going on, he connects with it, and he understands what he's signing on the ketubah, and he understands what it means, and what the kiddushin means, and what edim mean, So one of the things I told him is that we have a custom that's brought down in halacha that at the end of the chuppah they say Im eshkachech Yerushalayim, and it became in the custom of the Jewish nation to smash a cup, to break some. It doesn't have to be a cup, but that's what the custom became. And he said, and then what? I said, and then the music starts playing. So he tells me, wait a second. How does that work? I'm under my chuppah. It's my happiest moment of my life. I'm getting married. Suddenly I got to mourn some temple that I don't know anything about. And 30 seconds later, I got to dance Od Yishama B'Arei Yehuda. He says, which one is it? I said, first of all, that's exactly the idea. That even in the happiest moment in life, we still remember Jerusalem. I said, that's number one. I said, but number two, I want to tell you that there may be something even more than that. I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what came to mind. I don't think it's true. I said, we break something. We break something as a symbolism of, there's many reasons, but one of the many reasons of that we're lacking, that we're missing, that the simcha is not whole because we're not in Yerushalayim HaKodesh. I said, somebody who understands that the simcha is not whole, he has a right to be happy. Somebody who doesn't even understand that, so he's stam lost. And he lost all touch with anything. For example, Lo aleinu v'lo alechem, you should never know what this means. But I have an acquaintance who recently had a stroke. And as a result, part of his body seemed to be paralyzed. Us as friends went and we prayed for him and cried for him and everything. And I'm not saying it was because of that. Hashem, berov chasadav, with his great kindness, made a miracle that today he's not paralyzed. And the doctors didn't give him a shot at all at not being paralyzed. Not only the doctors didn't give him a shot, definitely not to come back in a way that he's walking on his own 2 feet in a matter of a few weeks. Doesn't make sense medically. It was a ness. We got to witness a ness. When was the moment of huge excitement amongst those that were his friends and his acquaintances? There was a moment that one afternoon he was in the hospital still, and he complained to a nurse that he feels a terrible burning and tingling sensation in his arm. And to him, he was complaining, he was in pain, he wanted pain meds. And the nurse went running and the doctors came running, not as an emergency, as a joyous occasion. He said, what, you feel something in your arm? So what to him looked like a pain was really the beginning of the great news that he's healing. And then he healed at a pace that there's no way to document medically that it makes sense. Sometimes exactly what you think hurts is the biggest Yeshua for you, is the greatest thing. That's why I told this boy, I said, Tzaddik, when you hurt for the Beit HaMikdash under your chuppah, that means you're going to build a Jewish home. Because the Jewish home is the closest thing that we have to the Beit HaMikdash. If you don't hurt under your chuppah for the Beit HaMikdash, then you're going to build a home. But I don't know how much Jewish is going to be in it already. And that's why Chazal, not Stam, made that one of the times that Shebahem Banot Yotzot, like the Gemara says, in a holiday that had a big power when it came to Shidduchim, was immediately after Tisha B'Av, because it was to teach Am Yisrael a lesson. We don't have a Beit Mikdash, but at least we could build our own Beit Mikdash. And that's the Nechama Puta, that's the small consolation that we have within the circumstance. But Chazal say, and this goes back to the story that we said from Rabbi Yagen, an unbelievable thing. There's a Gemara Masechet Shabbat Kuf Yutet Amud Bet. The Gemara says, Lo charva Yerushalayim, Jerusalem wasn't destroyed, Ela b'shvil, only because shehishvu katan legadol. That they compared, they said that they made equal somebody who was a great person and a regular person. Everybody's the same. That's what the Gemara says. This Gemara seems like it's in a direct contradiction to another Gemara. There's a Gemara in Masechet Yuma. The Gemara is in Yuma Daf Tet Amud Bet. The Gemara says, Lo charva Yerushalayim ela mishum sinat chinam. Yerushalayim was destroyed because of baseless hatred. So which one is it? And we always have this question on these Gemarot. Sometimes the Gemara has many reasons for something. Which one is it? Is it because of this? Is it because of that? Is it because of both? If it's because of both, why? How does it go together? These are the questions that the Mefarshim ask on this. Second of all, in this case, the question is a lot stronger, because in a regular case, when the Gemara says, let's say 5 reasons for one thing, so you could say they're all true. For example, one of the most famous examples that's used in Chazal, that we use from Chazal to explain this idea, is the Gemara Masechet Megillah, that the Gemara says approximately 15 things of what did Esther HaMalkah think when she went into Achashverosh that day in the story of Purim, when she was scared that she would lose her life if Achashverosh doesn't stick out the Shavit Azar. What was going through her mind? And the Gemara has many, many reasons over there. A whole list of reasons. Each one's different than the next. And then the Gemara says that they met Eliyahu Navi, they asked him what's God doing. He's talking about what they're saying. What's he talking about? He's saying that this one said this was what she thought, this one says that was what she thought, and So they said, no, and which one's right? So the Gemara says, Eilu ve'eilu divrei Elokim chayim. They're all right. What does it mean they're all right? So over there, it's not really a question if you think about it. A person has many thoughts in his mind in 1 minute. So she was standing outside for a minute. She thought all of them. There's no contradiction in what she was thinking there. It's a bunch of different things you could think. You could have 5 reasons to go down the block now. It doesn't have to be that you only have one reason. If you walk from here to Main Street now because you want to take care of things, you're going to go to Main Street for one errand, come back home, go back again, come back home. No, it could be a few reasons why you're going. You're doing a few things at the same time. So that's not a big question already. But if the Gemara says something, 2 reasons to something that seem to be a direct contradiction, then we have a problem. Sinat chinam is baseless hatred. Baseless hatred doesn't mean, but one of the symptoms of it is I think I'm better than you, or you think you're better than me, or we don't get along, or whatever it is. Here we're saying, Shishvu katan legadol, they considered everybody equal. If they considered everybody equal, lichora, in a shallow way of thinking, this should be the greatest ahavat chinam. Look, we're all equal. So that would be a direct contradiction. So which one is it? Is it the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat Kuf Yutet that says that Yerushalayim was destroyed because the Shishvu Katan Legadol, they made everybody equal? Or is it the Gemara in Masechet Yuma that says what seems to be the exact opposite? That they had some baseless hatred. They didn't consider everybody equal. And you know what the answer is? Rav Steinman writes such a simple answer. He says the question's the answer. And this is what he writes. He says that if a katan doesn't understand that there are people that are greater than him, then he ends up hating them. That's sinat amei haaretz letalmidei chachamim, for example, right? Rabbi Akiva said that before he became a talmid chacham, he used to say, miteni talmid chacham ben shechenu kachamo. He would bite him right through. He says when somebody who's less learned doesn't know how to respect knowledge and learning, and soon we'll explain it's a lot more than just knowledge and learning, then there's nothing left anymore. So then at that point, if the gadol is respected by some, to the katan that doesn't want to respect the gadol, because to him it's like, what? What does that have to do with anything? He ends up hating, and that's a baseless hatred, because you should also be respecting him. So not only don't the Gemarot contradict, it's actually one Gemara is explaining the other. You know how Sinat Chinam started? It wasn't that they were fighting petty fights. That they had an idealistic argument. Some young people said, we're just like everybody. Everybody's created under God. We're all equal. And it sounded like a beautiful tune. It's a tune that we play to a lot today. Except we do it in the right way, the way the Torah says, that Hashem loves everybody equal. That doesn't mean that everybody's equal. That the Yisrael that live in a different world than we live in, even though we're on the same planet. But the people that didn't want to absorb this, that couldn't understand this idea, to them, now they develop a resentment. They say, what? And this comes from arrogance of a young generation that doesn't want to accept that there's such a thing as Torah giants. And sometimes, yeah, maybe what the Chacham said doesn't make sense to you. But so what? He said it. Chazal HaKadoshim teach us an unbelievable thing, and this is good to know. That if a person asks Dat Torah is not ask a rabbi. Dat Torah is somebody who knows the Torah, or lives the Torah, or everything about him is Torah. A question. And the Chacham answered him. And his answer is dead wrong. I don't mean in halacha, I mean advice thing. It makes no sense. It's wrong. And I will tell you, and I'm embarrassed to say this because this can be translated in wrong ways, but I've seen situations live where people had asked Reb Chaim Kanievsky for medical advice, and Reb Chaim said, don't do a surgery, or do a surgery, whatever he answered, each case individually. And I was like a medical consultant on the case, and in science, it made no sense. Not only didn't it make sense, if anything, it seemed to be that he was endangering the person's life. But of course, we went with whatever Reb Chaim said, because when you ask, you go, and there's no games. And somehow he proved to be right. And I always wondered, how did he prove to be right? Until I came across this chazal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that in the criteria of tzaddik gozer v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayem, it's not just if a tzaddik says he's gozer something. If somebody who's a learned person, a Talmid Chacham, and he's doing it for the right reasons, L'Shem Shamayim, he gives advice to a person, even if his advice is wrong, is completely wrong. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to change the rules of nature and make sure that it comes out right for the Talmid Chacham. Here it is. Unbelievable. I'm going to change the rules. The laws of nature aren't going to apply now. And what's going to apply? The words of the Talmid Chacham. It's an unbelievable thing. Unbelievable thing. The Baba Sali once told his son, Baba Meir, told my father, Shibadel Chaim Tovim, that people think that I have special superpowers to heal people and miracles and this and that. He says, it has nothing to do with that. He says, you know how I tell a person who's paralyzed in a wheelchair to get up and he gets up? It's not a miracle. It's when he hears what I have to say, he makes a quick decision. Do I listen to the tzaddik and try to get up? Or do I say, well, crazy, I'm paralyzed, I can't walk. He said, when he decides in his mind that he's going to listen to what I have to say, in Shamayim they said, he wants to listen to that Torah, now the nature has to change. So really, he healed himself. Yeah, unbelievable thing about what Sally said about himself. Unbelievable thing. He said the person really healed himself at that point. Because the fact that he decided to do a certain thing. And I want to tell you, very few people have the merit, and I hope all of you will one day have the merit to have what's called a Rabbo Muvhak. A rabbi, Talmid Chacham, a Torah sage who learned Shas and Poskim and that they follow. And that they don't go rabbi hopping. Today we ask this posek question, tomorrow we go to the next one, the next day we go to the third one. You know, that's part of the way of the confusion of the generation. I was zocheh since I'm 17 years old to have Mori Rabbi Yagen Tzaddik Rav Shlomo Cheshen. Hashem should give him a refuah shlema b'meira b'ezrat Hashem. And if I would start saying stories of what I've seen in things that he told me that many times honestly made no sense to me because of my small mind, and I did them anyway, and how they played out, I could probably fill up books just myself. If I would keep a diary, there would be a whole series out already. It's amazing the power of what the tzaddik says and how he says it and the way it's going to be, and that's it. To the point, now I'm not giving you advice to do the same because I don't know, this is, I am giving you advice to do the same under the right context. When I was engaged to be married, I guess you call it my fiance at the time, my wife of almost 20 years now, until 120, asked me, you're a busy type of guy, you have a lot going on in your life. What does a girl ask in a situation like that? Am I always going to come first? Am I going to be most important? And what does a normal person say in such a situation? Sure, honey, right? And if somebody didn't tell you that, run for your life. It's bad news. You know what I said? I said third. Third? That's crazy. That's suicide. I said, but not third working against you. Third working for you. What does that mean? I said, the Rebbeinu Shalom comes first. But that's for both of us, so that's simple, right? So that probably wasn't part of the question. I said, but in a moment of truth, if my Rebbe tells me something, that comes before everything else. And unless you can understand that, accept it, and be part of it, then we're wasting our time. Because by me, there's no questions asked. The Rebbe said, and it's all over. That's it. And there have been many times, and this girl is such a tzaddik for what she does, that Rav Shlomo would call me in the past couple of years, a little less. He would say, I need you in Israel in 15 hours. For what? Doesn't make a difference. That's what he would answer me. He never told me. Just come. And it was an instant, then it was an Uber yet. Taxi, a local taxi service in Lakewood, to the airport, without a ticket, without anything, with tefillin and a passport. The Rebbe said, come, well, doesn't make a difference now, why? And there were times that I went, and he spoke to me about a couple of things or whatever, and it could have been done on the phone in 3 seconds. And it would take me a year, 2 years, and sometimes until today I don't have an answer. Why was it so important to go to Israel for it? Once I had a situation that I asked him a certain question about a business, and he told me, come to Israel. And I said, when? And he told me, next week, Wednesday. I said, but I need an answer now. He told me, next week, Wednesday, come to Israel, and we'll discuss it. I said, Rebbe, but I need to give an answer now. I'm in contract that expires, and I have to know which way to go, and there's a lot of money that could be lost here. You don't want to answer? Tell me you don't want to answer, and I'll guess. I'll flip a coin. I don't know what I'll do, but I need an answer now. He said, until next week Wednesday, I'm not willing to discuss it. Shalom, I'll see you next week Wednesday. And he hung up. On Monday, this conversation happened more than 10 days before. It was the prior Monday. I mean, not Monday before the Wednesday, like in 2 days. 10 days before. The following Monday, 7 days later, was my expiration date of this contract, and there was a lot of money involved in it. And I didn't know what to do. It was either, do you close the deal, or do you take the risk of losing your deposit and hopefully maybe sue and get part of it back? But he said, not until Wednesday. And the lawyer calls me already early in the morning, and he says, no. And this guy's a Jew, but unfortunately, Emunat Chachamim at that point wasn't a strong point. His whole life changed because of the story, by the way. And I tell him, we're not doing anything. He says, what do you mean? I said, we're just not showing up, and whatever happens, happens. And we're not picking up phone calls, we're not responding to emails, we're not doing anything. We're leaving it as a status quo. So I said, what do you mean we're leaving it as a status? He says, what do you mean we're leaving it as a status quo? That's a guaranteed loss. Not only is it a guaranteed loss at that point, at least now if we go and we give a good excuse and whatever, we might be able to come up with some way out of this deal if you don't want it. But otherwise, he says, second of all, this is the opportunity of your lifetime. Why would you lose it? I said, I got a rule. I don't close the deal without the rabbi. The rabbi said he's not willing to talk to me about it until Wednesday. It's before Wednesday. What should we do? What he tells me. The guy says, oh, your stupid religion again, and he hangs up on me, a Jew. And I guess in his mind, I don't know what he was thinking, but I guess in his mind, he thought I'm crazy, we're going to lose all our money and have whatever money we put up over there, and it is what it is. But it's not his money, what does he care? He gets paid for his hours either way. Listen to this. At about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, this same Jewish lawyer calls me back and says, whoever that rabbi is such a holy Jew, we better go see him. I want to come with you. I said, what changed? You said stupid religion, this, that a few hours ago. Now suddenly you're talking like the biggest chassid of some Hasidic Rebbe. So he tells me, let me tell you exactly what happened. He said, I wasn't going to listen to you. You're a client of mine, but you're more than just a client. You're a friend. And I went to see what I could work out with for you. And as I was going to see, somebody called me, who's an associate of mine in the firm, and he said we were finalizing some things that we had to email you before you go into this negotiation of how to get out of the contract somehow peacefully. And we found out that this guy that you were about to buy the business from forged all his audited financial documents. Not only is the company not profitable, it's losing crazy amounts of money. Not only that, this guy also has a criminal stain in the past on the business. And not only that, the guy's whole idea here was to pull off a Ponzi using your guys' names. And we just picked up on it now, after all the due diligence that we did. And we're going to report it, and it turns out that this guy that was going to do this to me today is spending some time in a federal prison for many other things that he did as well, not just this. What do you think I did on Wednesday? I was in Israel. And when I walked into Rav Shlomo with a big smile says, "Nu, do I deserve a thank you?" That was the first words he told me before he said hello. "Nu, do I deserve a thank you?" But then I asked him a question. I said, Meir, I have to understand. You couldn't just tell me on the phone last week, stay away, there's a troublemaker, and that's it. What was the big deal? Somehow you knew, right? Hashem put in your head to know. You couldn't tell me on the phone such a thing. He said, Yaakov, you're fooling yourself. I don't have Ruach HaKodesh. I don't know what you're talking about. I did not know. I said, what do you mean you didn't know? I walked in, you just said, do I deserve a thank you? You did know. He says, I did not know. I said, so what happened? He said, I'll tell you the truth. When you called me, I was busy and I wasn't feeling so well also. And I started making a calculation, and I realized that Tuesday night is my grandson's bar mitzvah. And because of that, I have to travel and that's going to make me busy and weak and whatever. Wednesday and Thursday is the shiur at night, and in general, Wednesday is a shiur that I say just off the cuff. But this Wednesday, it happens to be is a different type of shiur, was scheduled, meaning the previous week, and therefore I felt I have to use the whole day to prepare, and there's no way I could do it. Friday, Shabbat, I don't see people. Nobody in the world. Those are days that are for the Rebbeinu Shalom. He says, Sunday, I had a grandson's wedding. So also I knew I'd be busy. I won't have Yeshuva Dad that Each day, Bekitzer, there was something. So when I told you Wednesday, it was because the first time possible to meet was Wednesday. That's it. I wasn't. And you told me that your deadline's Monday. So I said, if the Rebbeinu Shalom turned my life around so backwards that there's no way possible that I could even squeeze 2 hours to talk to you, when you're one of my closest students ever, until Wednesday, so there must be a reason, so I'm not going to fight it. I said, no, Baruch Hashem, we figured out the reason. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes the nature of the world to accommodate the words of a tzaddik. HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes the nature of the world to accommodate the words of a tzaddik. And some people might say, but I once asked a tzaddik and he said something and it didn't work out. And I'm going to answer you. It's because you didn't believe it. If you would have believed it, it would have worked. And on that I'm going to tell you Maaseh Shaya. I had a situation once with somebody who became very close to my Rebbe. I brought him to my Rebbe. And for years he was asking him different advice in different areas. And it was like a science work. Buy, sell, do, down, this, that. Things that there's no way to explain. And one day he asked him advice on something. And he listened to the advice. But it didn't work out. So first of all, it's not a question. Sometimes it's a test in Emunah also. But it bothered him a lot. So I told him, what's the problem? A few weeks is like Boim. And like Boim, we always go spend the whole day with the Rebbe. Then we'll be able to ask whatever we want. We're going to ask him this too. Don't worry, I can get away with it. So we went into him, and we had a beautiful day. And at the end of the day, I threw it in. I said, Rabbi, I got a curveball for you. He gave him bad advice. It cost him money. Rabbi, what's going on? And he says, you lost money there? And he said, yeah. And he says, how much? And he told him. He thinks. And maybe, I don't know, 60 seconds later, that felt like eternity, because when it's quiet and you're waiting for an answer, every second feels like forever. He said, was I the only one you asked, or you asked to somebody else afterwards? He said, I went into Reb Chaim also on the way out, or I don't remember if it was Reb Chaim or somebody else, and I also asked. He said, really, this business, I don't know if it was good or not. What do I know about business? But what helped you your whole life? Your Emunus Chachamim. He said, Emunus Chachamim is not Chachamim plural, the way it sounds like. It's that you have HaSelech HaRav, and this is what you stick to. So Hashem gave you a siyata d'shmaya as long as you live. But now that you started going hopping, and not just hopping, you went to much bigger and greater than me, that means that what I say has no value anymore. He said, Elamai, you're going to ask me, so why didn't what the greater rabbi have to say have value? You know why what the greater rabbi had to say didn't have value? Because al pi halacha, you weren't allowed to ask him, because once you ask a question, you can't ask it again. So he had no siyata d'shmaya to give you the right advice. He said, so you handicapped the Gdol Ador, and you ruined yourself. What'd you gain? Understand but how do we relate to that? And why is this so important to discuss? Because if Chazal say that Shishvu Katan V'Gadol was the reason why the temple was one of the reasons why Yerushalayim was destroyed, so that means that if we want to do a corrective therapy in order to make that we should have a temple, inshallah, very soon, b'mirav yameinu, and that this year already we should do Yom Kippur ba'avodato in the Beit HaMikdash. And honestly, that's not far-fetched. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not going to sit here and tell you all the reasons why, but there are enough calculations why. And if there's any truth, I don't know if there's truth, by the way. I've been trying to investigate already for 4 days. But if there's any truth to that theory behind the stone of the Western Wall that fell, then that's a very powerful thing. But the day I have validated truth from Sfarim that I see myself, not pictures of Sfarim that you never know what they did to them in the middle. Yeah. But I will tell you that this part is for sure true, because that's the fact. You see it in the picture, not in the small pictures. In the video, you see it clearly. The part that the stone fell and caused damage is exactly where the Reform made the section that they want to go pray. I think that was a very clear message from God saying what he thinks about Reform Jewry. That's all I have to say on the subject, and everybody should take it as far as they want, and the farther the better. But I think that was very clear. So beyond that, I don't know. But Ikvasadim Chicha for sure. I don't know if you guys follow Israeli news or not. It's kidai once in a while to look on a kosher website and see what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, so you should have a little grasp, a little connection with Israel. But the northern border of Israel is at war practically. The southern border of Israel is practically at war. Today, lo aleinu, we have 1 dead and 2 severely wounded. Hashem should send them refuah shlema to the severely wounded. And Hashem yinkom damo to this from another terrorist attack. And they openly said today they have to go out to another one. They call it an operation. They don't want to call it a war, but it's Shem Yirachim. The last one costed 50-something kids' lives. Besides the civilian injuries and casualties, and besides. So the Matzav in Eretz Yisrael is Mitzafon Tipatach Hara'ah, is clear, Chazal say, and then the whole situation together, everything together. And Chazal say, Ein ben David ba, Ela bedor shu kulo chayav or kulo zakai. Mashiach's going to come at a time that Am Yisrael is either all tzaddikim or all the other way. We've explained many pshatim in this Chazal in the past. I want to tonight quote from my uncle Zechet Tzaddik HaRav Nissim. Rav Nissim said his own chiddush, I think, that it doesn't mean kulo, the whole Am Yisrael. It means that the Jewish nation is going to go to two extremes. One extreme will be they'll go to the right way, to the tzaddikim, and we see so many tzaddikim today, each one in his own way. And the other extreme will be the HaRav will go against. I hope this part of the news you didn't see, because honestly that was enough to make any Jew sick. But in Israel this year on Tisha B'Av, Lo Aleinu, what they did. These people that call themselves Pride, I don't even want to say their name in a shul, went and made a parade of 80,000 people in Tel Aviv to protest some law. Which the law is only a law to prevent mamzerim and many other issues. On Shabbat, they couldn't find a better time to do it. On Shabbat. That's Ein Ben David Ba. The day the Mashiach's born is Kulo Chayav, Kulo Zakai. Chazal say clearly, Reb Chaim this week was talking about a lot, Chaim Kanievsky. There's a clear Chazal, it's a midrash, that says that on Shabbat, Mashiach's neshama comes back, is born in the world every year again. Born doesn't mean it's a newborn baby. People don't understand this midrash. They ask, what do you mean? So he's a newborn? So how many years do we have to wait? And if he's born again next year, so we got a new 1-year-old. No, it means that there's a soul that Hashem puts, a neshama, into an existing person that lives amongst us. This week, Reb Chaim after Tisha B'Av was in a big simcha, and he kept on repeating this midrash many times. Many times he repeated it this week. It's so again, I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not here to say dates or times or do that and make that stupid mistake that other people fell into that trap. But I am here to clearly say that we should be zocheh. And here Chazal is saying the way to be zocheh. The way to be zocheh comes Chazal and say is don't be one that's mashveh katan begadol. Understand to respect the Yisrael. And unfortunately, Aleinu, and I say this with a lot of pain inside, there's many machlokot between the Yisrael. And therefore we don't understand. And a lot of times we voice opinions. I'm on this side, he's on that side. Hashem Yirachim, who are you? What do you know between the machlokot of the Yisrael? They had their arguments because of holy reasons that halavai, when you're 119, you should understand 1% of it. What are you mixing in? What does it have to do with you? Stay far away from it. By us, Elu Divei Elokim Chaim, they're all Torah giants, and we stay very cautious. He said, this side, that side, which group do you belong to? We don't have groups, and we don't have sides, and we have no commentaries to make on anything that an Adam Gadol said. And if we'll understand that there's Gdolim, and there's Ktanim, and there's nothing wrong, yeah, I'm a Katan, and there's others that are Gdolim, then that'll bring Yerushalayim's reconstruction a lot closer. I want to quote one more Gemara, say Yesod, and end off with a few thoughts about my brother. The Gemara says in Masechet Makot Daf Chavbeit Amud Bet. The Gemara Masechet Makot Chavbeit Amud Bet says like this: Kama tipshai sha'ar inshi. How stupid are a lot of people. They kame mikame Sefer Torah. They get up in front of a Sefer Torah. V'lo kaime mikame Gavra Rabba. But they don't get up in front of a Torah giant, somebody who's a living Sefer Torah, knows the Torah. This is what the Gemara says. The Gemara explains. The Gemara goes on and continues. Why? Because in the Torah it says, meaning in the Sefer Torah, in the Chumash it says, Al ba'im yakenu. When a person is chayav malkot, you give him 40 lashes. That's what it says in the Torah. Ve'atu rabanan u'batzur chada. The Chachamim said, no, you don't give him 40, you only give him 39. How many malkot are there? L'alacha, 39. Comes the Gemara and says, look how great are the Chachamim. The Torah went and said, Arba'im yakenu, give him 40. And the Chachamim had the power to what seems like uproot something from the Torah and say otherwise, and that became the halacha. That we lessen the person's punishment. So in the Maharal, Prague, in the Sefer called Netiv Torah, The Maharal, many Svarim, so you have to say which Sefer, so you know the source. So the Maharal says a very interesting thing. He says, we're used to looking at a Torah giant as a person who knows a lot of Torah. Right? When we think about Avshach, so we think Avshach knew the whole Torah by heart. Stipler, knew the whole. That's the way we view it. Comes the Maharal in Netiv Torah and he says in Ashkafa that's wrong, to the point that he writes a little bit harsh words there. He says it could be it's even borderline kfirah. He says a gadol b'Torah is not somebody who knows. A computer also knows. Today there's a software called Otzar HaChochma. For $2,000 you could buy it. It knows more than everybody together. 56,000 books I think it has in it or something. So maybe we should stand up for the computer now. Well, our youth is doing that. They're living around it. But normal people. He says, comes to Maharal and says, a person who learns enough Torah and he learns it L'Shem Shamayim, he becomes Torah. So it's not that the Chachamim argued with the Sefer Torah. The Chachamim learned so much Torah that they became the Sefer Torah. Them and the Sefer Torah was one. And at that point, they were able to learn with the tools that were given to them from Shamayim to analyze the Torah and to come up with the halakha that says that Arba'im Yakenu means only 39. That means when a person sees a big Talmid Chacham and walks into a room, and he stands up for him, he's not only standing up for his Torah knowledge, he's standing up for the Torah. This is a vessel of Torah, a vehicle of Torah. When a person kisses an Adam Gadol's hands, like the Sephardic Jewry still held on to that custom, and hopefully we hold on to it forever. By the way, Api Kabbalah, there's big inyanim in it. It says you connect with the neshama of the tzaddik, part of it comes to you. There's a lot of big benefits in that. If a person has a schut, to see an Adam Gadol. So you didn't kiss flesh and blood. You kissed flesh and blood that Api Halacha is actual Torah. It's the mitziyut of the Torah. It's the actual mitziyut of the Torah. It's the facts of Torah. This is what the Maharal teaches as a big yisod. By the way, the Maharal proves it from other places, but our time doesn't allow us to go through it. No, if we view things this way, so then we can take it a step further. Rav Hutner Zecher Tzadik Levracha writes a very interesting thing in a letter that he writes to a student. He says that in life there's different types of darkness. What does that mean? There's two people that can't see. One person can't see not because his vision is hurt. His vision is perfect, but the room is dark. Without light, you can't see. It's dark. Then there's another person who also can't see, but the room is perfectly light. We should never know he's blind. That's why he can't see. He says, what's the difference? The blind person is not his fault. It has nothing to do with him. Hashem made him that way, or later on, he had a tragedy that caused him to be that way. And now, his vision is like, the Mitzvah says he can't see. The other one, he can't see, but there's a quick fix. Turn on the light, and you'll be able to see perfectly. Everything will be fine. If he chooses not to turn on the light, so that's self-inflicted pain already. We don't have mercy on people like that. But be'etzim, he can just turn on the light, and that's it. Comes Rav Hutner and writes the Talmud like this. He says, I want you to know that the Jewish nation is built spiritually of souls, a combination of souls that are like the human body. And each different part of the Jewish nation resembles a different thing. For example, in a different place he writes that the arms resemble the Balei Chesed, and the Neshamot that are attracted to doing Chasadim. Each part is the head is for the Talmidei Chachamim. Each one is for something else. He says the eyes of the Jewish soul, meaning the encompassment of all Jewish souls, are the Gdolei Torah, are the Torah giants. He says somebody who doesn't connect himself with the Gdol Torah, or somebody who argues or has commentaries to make, or whatever it is lacking in his Emunat Chachamim, is spiritually blind. He's spiritually blind. He said, if somebody's spiritually blind, he has no chance to have a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is a condition to have a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I think his words are, "Sherak al yadam efshar lirot v'listovev ki Yehudi." Only through their eyes are we able to actually see and to operate, to go around and behave like a Jew. This is a quote from Rav Hutner Zecher Tzadik B'Vachas Yagen. In Kenim Advarim, so of course we need a big chizuk, and this is a big test in this generation. And the whole inyan of Emunat Chachamim, and with a lot of love, I strongly, strongly advise that each person in his own way should work on it. It takes a lot of self-discipline. It's very humbling. What? I'm going to listen to what I'm the businessman, he's not the businessman. I'm the doctor, he's not the doctor. We had a situation recently, there was a lady who was in active labor, and something went wrong a little bit. The doctor wanted to do a C-section. Now, I'm not sure that he wanted to do a C-section so much for medical reasons. A lot of them like doing C-sections because they get paid much more money that way. And but one way or the other, the family called me, and I said, who's your Rav? We have to ask a Rav. So they said, what do you mean a Rav? We're asking a medical question. I said, there's not a medical question. If you're asking a medical question, the doctor already answered you. I said, well, let me speak to the doctor for a second to see if there's time to ask a Rav. Because if it's a safek pikuach nefesh, if there's a danger involved, of course, you got to do it immediately. But if there's no danger involved and we could still wait a little bit, so then we'll ask a Rav what to do. So I spoke to the doctor, very, very nice guy, Chinese guy. And he told me on the phone, no, it doesn't have to be done right now, but within the hour and a half or so. I said, so 15 minutes time, would you give me to get back to you? So he said, yeah. I asked them who their Rav is, they stuttered. I said, what does that mean? You don't have a Rav? So they said, no. I said, okay, I'm making you a Rav. I'm calling in Adam Gadol in Israel, and he's going to be a Rav from now on. I'm not here to give publicity stunts for Talmidei Chachamim because they get angry at me when I do, because then people start harassing them afterwards. But I called a Jew a Talmid Chacham that I knew that I was able to reach right away. There's a big siyata d'shmaya in everything he says. And I told him the story. I don't know how much he knows about this stuff. I don't know. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But I told him the basic story, what's going on. And I said, Rebbe, we need a little bit siyata d'shmaya over here. What's the right thing to do? Should we push it to the limit? Really the question was, should we push it to the limit until the doctor says there's no choice, it must be done, and that's it? Or anyway, it looks like it's going to have to be done. The doctor says, why do it under pressure if we could do it the normal way? Should we do it now? He says, neither one. I said, what does that mean? He said, call the family on the other line and see if the doctor's around. I said, what do you mean he's around? He said, yeah, I just spoke to him. No, in the room. I said, what does it make a difference if he's in the room now or not? He said, no, in the room. Okay, I was embarrassed. I called the husband. I said, I don't know, we're on two lines here. Where's the doctor? Is he in the room? They said, no, he's hanging out in the nurse's station or something stupid like that. I said, could you get him to go into the room? So he said, why? I said, I don't know either, but these are... He said, I could call him in. I said, give him an excuse. Your wife's feeling some pain. I don't know what. But give him some excuse. He'll come in. When this chacham on the other end of the line tells me he's in the room, yeah. There's a nurse there also? I asked, is there a nurse? Yeah, there's a nurse there. He said, okay, mazel tov, 2 minutes, the baby will be born. And he hung up. A couple of minutes later, I don't know if it was exactly 2, the baby was born, natural, everything. The doctor, with his arrogance, walked out of the room saying, what a miracle that she had that pain that I had to come in. So I was able to birth her. Idiot, you just said you need surgery. I'm a curious guy. I called this rabbi back, and I said, Chacham, first of all, thank you very much, and so on. I was like, well, what was that about? I know you're not into this type of stuff. What was that about? So he told me he has a Kabbalah, Ish Mipi Ish, I don't know how many generations up, of a certain thing to daven for, a certain thing to say, that makes the baby come out. He says, and in general, you're not allowed to do it, because Hashem has a certain mazel that He wants a baby to be born with, and that's why we don't do many different medical procedures that would make births happen quicker. He said, but if it's a case that they're going to do a surgery to a mother, and then later on people have a few of these surgeries, can't have kids anymore, so then I do it. So I just wanted to make sure it was safe to do. He says, no big chokhmah, I just have a Kabbalah. He told me how he has it. From Rabbi Levine, who got it, I don't know, he told me exactly the way he has it. And I don't know what it is, so don't think I have any clue on the thing. But that also comes from Emunas Chacham. Isn't it crazy to pick up a phone and call and say, bring the doctor into a room, and the doctor was just there, checked the lady 3 minutes before and said, there's not. it ain't happening, the birth right now, and we need a surgery, and you have to be crazy to do such a thing. But that's a simple emunas chachamim. And when you go with a simple emunas chachamim, Hashem tells you back, I'm going to give you back a simple emunas chachamim. Because a chacham is Torah itself. I want to end off just with a thought about my brother. Over the years, we said many stories, whether it was Yortzeit season or not, and fine. Recently, I've been saying less stories, even though I've found out so many more, because some of his friends came to me and said that they heard a lot of the stories, and it makes them give up. That if somebody else so young could get so far, and they're older already because they're still alive, God should watch over them forever, for 120. Then, so I'm more cautious what I say and what I don't say. A lot more cautious. But one of the stories, and I think I said this probably within the year of his passing, that I was part of, that I witnessed myself, was after he passed away. He passed away on a Saturday night. No, Sunday night, sorry. And then we had a funeral in Jersey in Lakewood Yeshiva on Monday. And then we flew to Israel. And then we went to Bnei Brak the next day in the afternoon, to Jerusalem, and then we went to Bnei Brak to bury him. By then it was already, we're talking about close to 48 hours later. Now honestly, for a regular person, you shouldn't do this, it's wrong. The Neshama is great tsar when it's not buried right away. Yerushalayim is a minhag Yerushalayim that if somebody dies even at midnight, they bury an hour later. It doesn't make a difference, even if nobody's going to be at a funeral. The Neshama is big tsar. We don't keep bodies waiting. But for an Adam Gadol, Mishum Kvodo, there's a special head to do. I'm assuming none of you work in the Chevra Kadisha, so you don't know this, and I hope you were never exposed to this either, because it could be traumatic. But bodies that are deceased very quickly get a very bad odor to them. Very, very bad odor to them. Especially if they're not in refrigeration and everything else. Now flights, transports, funerals, no refrigerations. 2 days. The Chevra Kadisha in Israel, the halacha is you can't bury somebody before you identify that you're burying the right person. It's such a halacha. So somebody has to go into the room, they have a private room, the Chevra Kadisha in every cemetery, and they pick off the cover of the face, the sheet that's wrapped around the face of the tachachim, depending where it's done, and in America it's a little different. And somebody, a family member, has to identify, this is who we say it is, and this is who we have to bury now. The head of the Chevra Kadisha of Bnei Brak in the Ponovich Achelka, instead of asking just for one person to come in, said whoever from the family wants to come to identify. That's weird. It's bad enough for one person to have to go through such a thing. More people? And later on he said, he told us why. Right after the burial he told us why. He said, I offered other people to come. He said, let me tell you, I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of funerals in my life, including many funerals of great Gedolei Yisrael and very famous names. He says, and normally they're from Israel. So it's within 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours sometimes. He says, and the odor in the room is unbearable. It's just physically unbearable. He said, did any of you smell anything when you walked into the room? Nothing. He said he looked like he was alive still. There was still color in his face. And not a drop of sun. This is after 48 hours. He says, in all my years, I never had such a thing in my entire life. This is, I don't know how to explain it. I've been walking around with this story for 3 years now, inside of me. I said it over even. But I never understood it. But now I understand it. Based on what we learned tonight, it's very simple. If a person who his whole life, I think when he was 11 years old, is when he said he openly told my parents, and from today on, the only thing that interests me in my life is learning. And the only reason why he said that to my parents wasn't to brag. It was because he needed glasses. And my mother wanted to take him to the glasses store because they already went to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor said he can't see. And he said he's not going. And my mother said, what do you mean not going? You need glasses, you got to go to school. You're not going to be able to see the board. And he told my mother that al pi halacha, there's no heter to put on glasses when now you could see more marot asurot because you could see better. He was 11. He says, and I plan on dedicating my whole life to learning. So how am I going to look at the letters of Tosfot after looking at something that I shouldn't see? That was his decision at 11 years old. And for the 21 years that Hashem gave him afterwards, until he took him to Gan Eden, he never put on a pair of glasses. Only reading glasses when he couldn't see at the end of his life a little bit to be able to learn. But besides that, nothing. Never, 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 no matter what. Because what gives me a head to see? And the doctors claim that, it's there's no way to explain how he was able to walk on the street without bumping into people because he couldn't see. He needed not just glasses, very, very strong prescription glasses. Obviously, as a result, he never got a driver's license, never drove, never did anything like that, and so on. And we're not talking about stories from the 40s or the 30s or the 20s. This was 3 years ago. A young kid who was simple and humble and mixed in with everybody and was part of everybody. And I'll share with you the moment that's most ingrained in my life. That was the last Saturday that he was alive. He was in Good Samaritan Hospital in Muncie because he went to visit my parents, or he went to stay by my parents that were taking care of him. And then something happened, then he had to be put in the hospital right away. He never came out of that hospital alive. And on Shabbat, my father lives, I'd say about 5 miles from the hospital or so. It's a pretty long walk. And it's Muncie. I don't know how much you know about Muncie. It's all hills up and down. And it's not like walking over here 5 miles. It's a project. Shabbat afternoon, I had to know what's going on. It's my brother. So I said, I'm going to walk to the hospital. What was I thinking? I'll walk one way. And Saturday night, I'll take a cab back already. That was my way of thinking. When I was about to leave the door of the house, my father, who was home, my mother was with him in the hospital, my father was home. My father told me, what do you mean? You're not going to walk back? I have to know what's going on also. So now I find myself walking on a Saturday in the hot summer in August, 10 miles round trip. And I'm not one of you guys who goes to the gym. So this to me is, you need a lot of nisim for that on its own. And I got to the hospital. I was ready with Mashiach, Hashem Yirachim. And as soon as I walked in, he puts on a smile on his face as if nothing's wrong in the world. And he tells me, thank God you came. He says, Mommy is not obligated in learning, so I couldn't talk to her in learning. And there's nobody here, Baruch Hashem, there's no from Jews here now, so there's nobody to talk to. And there's a lot on my mind. I have to ask you a few halacha questions. And he started having a diyun with me over there in the hospital in Ilchot Kiddush. He doesn't use grape juice for Kiddush because Rabbi Yasher holds this doesn't work. And it's less than Chamar Medina. It's not even Chamar Medina. And he didn't eat all day yet. There's a Cholesh Yesh Bo Sakana he passed away a day later because he didn't know what to do. There's no wine in the hospital and he can't make Kiddush. There was nobody to make Kiddush for him. And the challah maybe is sweet, so he doesn't know if it's hamotzi, so he's not sure if he could eat the challah or not. And if that's going to help, and he's not well enough to know that he could eat a shiur kaviyut suda, and you need kiddush mokum suda, and all these questions, and what's the solution, and how do we work around it, and what's the right way to do it, and what's this, and what's that. And I gave him an eitzah of what we're going to do and how. He loved it. He said, yeah, let's do it. He ate a few bites, whatever he was able to eat. And then he went on, and he started telling me that last night, he said, I was in a lot of pain, I couldn't sleep. He said, so the Gemara gives a solution, that when you're in pain, you should learn. So I was thinking and learning. And this is what I came up with, and it was hard for him to talk, because amongst the many, many tumors he had, his whole lungs were filled with tumors, so there was no oxygen going through. When you talk, you need a lot of oxygen. But he was forcing word after word after word in brilliant, ingenious chidushei Torah. Brilliant chidushei Torah. And we were talking and learning over there. At a certain point, I mentioned to my mother, and he overheard it, that Abba said I should walk back, so good luck to me, now I have to walk back. And I didn't mean it in a negative way, but the way to the hospital, most of it's downhill. The way back from the hospital is all, it's climbing the Everest. As soon as he heard those words, Abba is waiting for me. He says, we're sitting here talking and learning while Abba's worrying what's doing with me. Go tell him I'm fine, everything's perfect, I don't know why I'm in the hospital, I should be back at yeshiva already. Just go quickly and tell him that. And he threw me out of the room and I left. I walked back. By the time I got home, I felt almost like I have to go to the hospital for other reasons. I gave the report. My father calmed down based on what he told me to say, even though the facts might have been a little different. And on Shabbat, what's it going to help to be in pain? And that was that. I had left Saturday night to go to Lakewood. And I got to Lakewood, not even 10 minutes later, my father called me and said there was a terrible, things spiraled out of control. He's little by little shutting down. Emergency, come back to the hospital. So I just walked into the house, turned around. I wasn't stupid, I understood. I prepared myself halachically for what might come, and went back to Monsey. By the time I got back to Monsey, he wasn't conscious already. He couldn't talk anymore. And they were battling, the doctors, whatever the Hashem gave them power, they were battling for his life very, very strongly. When he passed away, a frum doctor in Monsey, who was a little bit involved helping us out there in Monsey because we needed some local help, came over to me and told me this. He says, I don't understand how it's physically possible to explain that your brother was not unconscious for weeks already. So I said, why not? He said, he has one of his tumors that's the size of it is a lot larger than a cantaloupe. Shalom Nidaj had gone Sonei Cell a second earlier. He says, it doesn't make sense. The whole thing, the whole story, I said, what do you mean? We were talking and learning yesterday. I said, now I'm an Ovil, an Oinan, even worse than an Ovil. I can't tell you what we were talking and learning. I'll be alacha, because you're not allowed to talk and learning. But if you want, call me in a week and I'll tell you what he was worried about. Hilchot Kiddush, how to do Kiddush perfectly on Shabbos. We get up, Shabbat morning, I'm not in the mood of the meal, forget about it. Because to us, Shulchan Aruch is, by the way, a pain in the neck that we have to figure out a way around. To him, his body was the Torah. So the biological elements of his body made no difference. I'll tell you one more thing. You'll forgive me because it's a little, blunt or open. But you see what an Adam Kadosh is. When your body becomes Torah, what becomes? While he was sedated and unconscious, whatever, he was, at the end, it was the last hours of his life. His wife, she got remarried, a big tzaddikus who stood by his side, said that my husband's whole life was learning. And she knew already, it was the end. She said, I wanted to pass away from the voice of Torah. She brought her brothers-in-law, big Talmidei Chachamim, Shivadlu Chaim Tovim, and some of us, and we turned his room into a Beit Midrash. Sat and learned Gemara. It was a regular Beit Midrash, sitting and learning as if it was first Seder in Lakewood Yeshiva, just under different circumstances. And the entire time, his body didn't move, right? The man is not, he's under artificial sedation plus natural sedation, that he's in his own medical collapse, state of collapse. And suddenly at one point, he starts moving his hands frantically and shaking his head like this. And nobody understood. They thought maybe it was a medication. The nurses called the doctor to see what else, to give him more pain meds, this, that, what's going on. They tried shooting him up, I don't know with what, all different things. In panic mode, you don't ask questions, you just let them do their work. And he kept on moving his head didn't stop moving. Now listen to the weirdest thing. We should never know when somebody's not well in such a situation. So his personal bodily needs, he has no control over. They figured out that something like that happened. Everybody left the room, they cleaned him up, and the second he was clean and they came back in to learn, he was as peaceful and as calm as could be. Al pi halacha, you're not allowed to learn Torah near something that's not clean. So the second it wasn't clean, the Torah wasn't affecting him in a good way already. He was allergic to that Torah, because that was Torah that Al pi halacha you're not allowed to have. And he battled it fiercely. When he was in a state that there's no way to explain why he was moving. And the second it wasn't the situation anymore, he was as calm and peaceful as could be, and he gave back his neshama to the Rebbeinu Shalom through hearing the voice of Talmidei Chachamim sitting and learning Torah in his room. That's the translation of Kihem Chayena. If the Torah is your life, then your body, your mitziyut, your being, your essence, everything about you becomes a chefza of Torah, becomes one big thing of Torah. And if we understand that that's what a 32-year-old can get to, imagine how Gdolei Yisrael Shibadlu Chaim Tovim that are still alive, what levels they're on spiritually, how careful we have to be b'chvodam with their respect, how much we have to invest in order to develop a connection with them, I don't mean an artificial connection, Take me into Reb Chaim and bring a photographer, idiot. Don't go in and don't bring a photographer. What are you doing? You need pictures on your wall to show off afterwards? To have a connection with Gedolei Yisrael. To be to be there, to be active, to learn from them, to discuss things with them, to have an actual connection to tzaddikim, to have an actual connection. And then, as Chazal say and warn, Hizaru bichlodam. Be careful, be careful, be careful with their honor and their respect. And I end off with on a very personal note and thought. I see a lot of horror and pain every day from people who call me for help. And Hashem Yisiyad L'Shmaya, as long as we're here and have the health, then we hope to help Klal Yisrael as much as we can. And lately I started a new thing, that when somebody calls me, first of course I try right away to do everything possible to give them whatever arrangements they need in whatever field. But then I one day find the time to speak to them. I say, are you careful with the honor of Gedolei Yisrael, with the honor of Talmidei Chachamim, with the honor of, are you careful? And many times they don't answer. I tell them, that's what you should take upon yourself. I said, all the Tehillim and all the chains and all of that, I don't know. I'm not knocking anything, but I don't know how real it is. You get a WhatsApp in the middle of work, say a Perek Shir Ma'ala. Most people don't even look at it, and the ones that do, they're at a work with a secretary who's not dressed modestly and in a business that they probably shouldn't be in, cheating people for money. What type of Shir Ma'alot is that in the first place? The Shir Ma'alot should be on them, that they're there in the first place. So I'm not convinced that that's what's going to bring a refuah shlema to these people. But if a person makes a real Kabbalah to change in something serious and something hard, which is a connection and a respect for Gedolei Yisrael, and not even Gedolei Yisrael, the Stipler writes, who's called a Talmid Chacham today? Somebody who gives his life for Torah. Many people that we know, that are our friends, that give their life for Torah. That's already a whole new league. And I end off with my Grand Slam story of the week. Every week there's a Grand Slam story. So this is this week's. I was discussing with an acquaintance that Lo Aleinu has a child that fell ill. And fell ill with something weird that, whatever, even the doctors couldn't figure it out completely. And they were trying. They were getting very good medical care. We helped whatever we can. And one night he asked me to come to the hospital to visit. And I said, sure, I'm coming, I'll be right over. And I went over. I spent some time, I tried to give him chizuk. It's not pleasant to see a young child like this. And discussed with the medical team different things that was necessary. And then he walked me out to the car. And when he walked me out to the car, I told him, he tells me, what do you think is a good Kabbalah, something I should take upon myself? And I told him exactly this. I said, it's also appropriate for the time. Shishvu katan legadol. Katan also means a child. Gadol, and Adam Gadol. I said, so we have to be careful, b'chvod chachamim. And I said, of course, you're a Talmid Chacham and everything, but... And the guy turned pale as could be. I almost, I was like, what did I say wrong? What did I do wrong? He asked me. I would never tell anybody what to do. He asked me. I just told him what my heart told me. And he says, let me tell you something crazy. So I said, what? He said, you know when my son went into the hospital? I said, yeah, of course, last Wednesday. Remember, you called me. So he says, you know what happened last Wednesday morning? I said, what? He said, I have a younger brother that learns in Kol. And for 16 years or 14 years, I don't remember if it was 14 or 16, one or the other, I support him every month. Him and his family, I pay all the bills beginning to end. He said, but the bills keep on getting bigger. His wife has a lot of kids, and the family grows, and. And at a certain point, I also felt it was irresponsible. He also has to take responsibility for his life. I have to support him. He said, Wednesday morning, I called my brother. And I said, listen, I have kids to marry off soon. Life's not a free ride. I'm not cutting you off, but I'm capping you to $3,000 a month. The rest you have to figure out on your own. And my brother was extremely nice about it. He told me, don't worry. What do you mean? For so many years, you've been giving me so much money. In a way, I'm almost happy that you're calling me for this because I was embarrassed to accept it. He says, 2 hours later, my son was in the hospital. Whoa. I said, yeah, you know why? Because when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the son, he never gave this kid life. But the schut of supporting your brother gave this kid life. I said, right now, not in a minute from now, right now, you call up your brother and you say, as long as there's money in my bank account, you're never going to be missing a thing. Just sit and learn. And forgive me for what I said. said, obviously, if you can afford it. He said, yeah, afford is not the issue now. I said, what's better? The money should go to doctors? He called up his brother in front of my eyes. He said, I'm sorry. He said, I made a mistake. I thought I was doing a good thing for you. I realized it was wrong. Give me the opportunity. And the brother's arguing with him. You have a lot of bills now. Your son's not well. The last thing you need, even the $3,000 I don't think you should give me. You have to focus now on your son. And he says, don't ask too many questions. Just say yes. So the brother said, listen, I'm not going to argue with you. Whatever it is. But I'm telling you, on my end, I'll make ends meet without it somehow. I'll figure it out. From the time he committed back to supporting his brother, to the time his son is back home, okay, was from Monday night to Thursday, 10:15 this morning. Less than 3 days. And there's a kid that the doctors already almost said a funeral for. I don't think it's tzedakah. Tzedakah tatzil mimavet, that's for sure. But I don't think that's that. I think it's that at that point, he also became attached to Torah itself. Torah is kiheim chayenu, it gives you life. Fine, the kid lives. So Kadosh Baruch Hu should help. We should always have a strong, strong connection from Torah. Talk about a Grand Slam story. This is the story of all stories. We should have a strong connection to Torah. We should be mechabed Torah v'lomdea. And be zocher, may the zchut of my brothers itself be megan on us. Bezrat Hashem this Shabbat, I'm in Queens. It would be nice to see everybody. תזכו לשנים רבות, נעימות וטובות.